So this is the 6th anniversary memorial for Paco de Lucia, who passed away. Um, and I always do a tutorial this time of year. And last 4, 5 were bulerías, and the very last one was a guitar trio piece for Evo. So I thought to do some more bulerías this time, but then I kind of changed my mind at the last minute. If people were looking forward to that, sorry. But I've had a lot of students working on Guajiras de Lucia, which is a really cool piece that Paco wrote when he was a kid. Some of the falsetas he first recorded when he was 15. And they present a lot of really unique technique challenges for guitar players, namely your basic scales and picados and arpeggios and things like that. So I thought what I'd do is go through the piece more or less briefly rather than show detailed specific falsetas, because a lot of people have the music for this. You can find the tablature for this pretty easily. And I have performed this piece several years back. I was inspired to learn the whole thing again, having worked on it when I was younger, but try to fix a lot of the errors and kind of troubleshoot some of the tricky spots so that I could actually play it in compás and things like that. So I'll link a video that I recorded years ago in the description, so rather than play the whole thing for you, we'll just go through it and troubleshoot some of the really tricky spots that I think might help out if you've tried to work on this piece before. And keep in mind, Guajiras is flamenco form. You can use any of these falsetas, out of the context of the composition, Guajiras de Lucia, and, just use them for baile, accompanied, or cante, or whatever you're working on. So let's just start with the beginning of Guajiras. Starts with a triplet arpeggio, and I'm gonna do a little bit in Spanish because I had a lot of requests for people from Spain want these tutorials in Spanish, and I didn't put the subtitles in there. I think you have to go through and translate the whole thing to do that. It's a lot of work. So along the way I might shift into Spanish a little bit here and there. So un poquito de Guajira de Lucia, de Paco de Lucia. No completamente completa pieza, pero cositas muy difíciles, por ejemplo picado, arpegio y acordes o algo. So la primera parte falseta is arpeggio. So we have we do Guajiras in A. So he starts the piece with this A sharp diminished chord. So the technique he's using is tresillos or triplet arpeggio. Pulgar, índice, medio. Esa parte no es difícil, pero una cosa muy importante es el ritmo en tresillos, pero en el compás de Guajira. Primera vez el pulgar es el tiempo. Okay, so the thumb has to keep the timing, and the melody is up top, and that's a contratiempo. La melodía es contratiempo. So para oído, primera parte pulgar es tiempo, el basso, el compás. So it's important to do rest stroke, apoyando con pulgar siempre. Now on the cuerda sol, you can do tirando, free stroke. So this kind of thing, it's okay. Pero it's importante apoyar, pulgar. So try to rest the thumb as much as you can. Here's a trick. It's not too bad, and then here's the really crazy part, the picado here. So we start right off the bat with this idea of doing arpeggios and picados and mixing it together. So there's a video, Paco, that popped up for this passage after he died, which is really good to study. And what he's doing there when he gets to this part, he starts with this kind of shape for the chord. Then he switches here to a full bar so that he can kind of visualize this position on the neck. When you use the index finger like a cejilla, you're basically transposing to E major. This should be like an E chord. So that's how he's thinking of this scale. And you know, we watch him do it this ridiculous speed, and it's pretty crazy. But anyway, it's not too hard to work on it that way. In troubleshooting this piece for myself, these are some details that I do differently, just because, you know, when you come up with your own style of playing, your own way to do scales and things like that, sometimes it's better not to fight what is the comfortable thing, but to do it just like the other person's doing. For example, Paco does things sometimes starting with a different finger than I might want to start with, and that changes the way it feels. So in this particular patch, I'll show you how Paco's doing it, and then I'll show you how I do it. So la primera parte es versión de Paco de Lucia. Escala La mayor, up and down, arriba y abajo. Aquí una cejilla con índice. I put here in the la nota del 5th fret. Aquí el dedo 3 y 2 aquí. So we're doing D, C sharp, D, E. So la misma nota, cambio la cuerda. Okay, so we have the cejilla like a bar, like the nut of the guitar, changing the note on which string you play the E note, so that it makes it easier for this guy to play fast. Okay. Then we come down the scale here. Lo mismo frets, same frets. And here we have a whole step. Okay. When we come to that part in the compás, remember Guajiras like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or if you put the solea compás on top, it's 12, 3, 6, 8, 10, 12, 3, 6, 8, 10. Okay, here on the arpeggio you can think of it as accenting in 12, 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9 y 12. Empezar en 12. 6, 9, 12. Oh, sorry. 6, 12, 6. So keep the compass here. I tend to like to do the whole thing in 3/4. 3/4 means when my foot is going, I'm just doing the every other beat, like 6, 8, 10, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That way I keep kind of consistent. You can use the metronome this way too. That way you can keep track of where the compás is. And you know, a big problem people have is rushing. Corriendo el tiempo es un problema. So you don't want to go too fast. even though Paco goes super fast, but the idea is to control the compás, control the rhythm. Okay, so one more time we get to this part. Okay, so I said troubleshooting for me means I'm gonna do it a mi manera, my way. So what I do different is I don't do this full bar. For me, that's pretty awkward for the way I've learned how to run fast scales, things like that. So I'm just doing this. Okay? For me, it's the same notes, same cuerdas, la misma cuerda y todo, pero sin cejilla, sin cejilla. So mi dedo índice es libre. Para mí es mucho más fácil, para mí. You want to speed up the tempo, it's okay, but first learn it in tiempo, okay? Next part is pretty straightforward. Nothing really big deal about this next part. Same technique, pulgar, medio índice, pero maybe if you come from classical guitar or something, you might not have encountered this half bar, which we use a lot in flamenco. That was something I never encountered when I was a guitar student, and I couldn't figure out how to get this sound. You know, it never occurred to me that you could do, leaving that open E there. So anyway, this chord, make sure that you hear all those notes clear when you're working on this, because you want it to ring out. So one thing I do is put this elbow pretty far in for students. They tend not to be able to do this reach and get on top here with the left hand, because they're going like this with the left arm or whatever. You got to get this guy in to do this clean until you get comfortable with what it sounds like, and then you can kind of relax and do whatever makes you comfortable. But anyway, that's the trick. The elbow to get this in. Make sure you hear all these notes. And again, apoyando. Pulgar, apoyando. Alright, so that part is pretty straightforward. Probably the next thing that we come to is the tempo change, okay? So he goes through this beginning part, stating the basic guajira compás, essentially. Okay, and then comes the crazy fast scale and the picado and the up tempo. Some people might be confused if you play for baile. How does this guajiras work for baile? This would be the part after the fancy footwork and the build-up, the subida de pie. Después de todo, el final, el bulería rápido. Very fast bulerías or fast footwork stuff. And in fact, he recorded a version of Guajiras where it's just the footwork and then going crazy fast over this entire thing. Obviously, it's very long and involved. It's a composition. It's not designed to be only for flamenco dancing or something like that. But if you're confused with what happens with the compás here, this goes through the roof tempo-wise. He's going like normal guajiras is going to be in your 140 tempo beats per minute or so, or even slower, or 100 beats per minute maybe, you know, depending on the dancer or the singer, if somebody's singing it. And he jumps up here to one. Well, I'm using he's gone up to 200, 300 beats per minute, practically, okay? So he's gone more than double tempo with this thing. And, you know, I like to, like I said before, use my foot in 6, 8, 10. So 6, 8, 10, 2, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Because it's more even, and it works for with the metronome. So you could use the metronome 3/4, like doom, tuk, tuk, doom, tuk, tuk, tuk. So you double time, and that's how the scale comes in. If you were to put this in compás of 12, the picado begins on 7. So 7, 8, so like 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12, 3, 6, 7, 8, 12, 3, 6, 12, 6. Okay, so he's basically going mi, la, and 12 and 6. 12 y 6 in compás. So that's the basic compás for guajiras. It's kind of different than what you do in alegrías, where you put the tonos on 3 and 10. So guajiras is unique in that sense. The compás feels a little different because we're putting 12 and 6 is where the chord changes go. So the scale comes in the middle of the compás. 7, 8, 9, 10. 7, 8, 9, 10. 12, 6, 12. Okay? So in the video, we see Paco doing this finger and do a shift here. 12 beat. 12. 6. Coming up here. Now you can do the major scale this way. Okay. Again, when I talk about troubleshooting this, a mi manera, I use a poquito diferente. Okay, for me it's easy to do fast scales the way I've learned them, and it really helped me a lot to change that. So these little problem spots that always give me hiccups when I'm trying to play up to tempo or close to the tempo, I sometimes find 1 or 2 notes that I change. Okay, so this is one spot that I change. So Paco does. Okay, so what I do different is I do this note, a key. This note for me changes, porque when I'm doing fast picado, I like to visualize 3 notas para cuerda. 3 notes per string. 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay? So I have half, whole half, whole half, whole, whole. And then here, la melodía begins in the 8th note on 12. Again, it's 3 notes, 3 notas. So that's the first thing I changed. One note, this one to this note. The other thing I changed, what you saw me do in the beginning of this video, and it's different than the video that I recorded years ago. It's something that kept hanging me up, so I changed it. Instead of doing this and then having middle finger lead, with the medio, empezar con medio, cambia el dedo. So I changed to this finger because when I learned scales, I learned this very fast when I was younger. So it's hard for me to adapt a completely opposite view of the scale. So when I changed this beginning part to this instead of, I was able to do this thing and never mess it up, really. Right? Or you want to add the bass note. Problem is now the bass note is here instead of here. Cambiar el dedo. If you want the bass note, you know, again, it sounds nice. It's tricky to do. For me, it's muy fácil. Muy fácil empezar con índice y 3 notas para cuerda. I change here. That's it. So 3 up. So on your own, you can experiment. I always give students an option for fingering. Like I want to show the way Paco does it first, and then you can try it and see how it feels for you. If you find yourself, like I do, coming up against these obstacles that prevent the music from flowing, I look at options. Change one note to a different string, and I got a much cleaner version of this run. Okay, this happens at the end again. So I'll just skip to that part of the piece. At the very end, he does this kind of. Okay. When you come up with this A minor. Right. So again, this thing, he's doing the same exact scale here. So coming out of this, you got to shift here. So, right, to get into this position. So that's your goal, is to get in this position so that you can now do that same run however you've worked on it. Okay, so again, what I did is change from what Paco was doing to this. This is my easy run. So to do that, I'm doing this now. So again, I have to get into that position. Once I'm here, I just go with my comfortable scale. Anyway, let's go through. I jumped ahead because it's the exact same scale that concludes the piece. But let's go back now and look at a couple other tricky spots in there. The first falseta, in case you're not already familiar, what he's doing, these tonos, la y mi, these are standard flamenco shapes, believe it or not. And I think when I first learned this piece when I was younger, I was like, wow, what crazy chords. And then, years later, I realized those are basic chords for accompanying cante or something like that, So if we needed a 1 and a 5 chord in this position, that's how we do that, right? We have another one that's like this, right? So those two chords are just kind of setting you up for your basic flamenco voicings. Here also, this is the same chord really as this one. Okay, just kind of setting you up for that. Right. And then he transposes to B. And again, we have the exact same idea except B in F sharp this time. So up here, now we don't have an open B chord, so he jumps up to here. And here's your other F sharp. So this one and this one, these are standard flamenco voicing. So if you encounter something awkward about this, there's a problem right there. It's just getting the standard voicings of flamenco chording down. And a lot of that is learned right from the cante, right? So the way they're composing is thinking about cante first, and how you would play if you wanted to change key, for example. So he's changing from A to B. So en español es Si mayor y Fa sostenido. Those are his chords. Okay. Basic chord shapes. Then he modulates here. All that's pretty straightforward. I really like the sound of this E. It's really good to get aggressive arpeggio here. Using a full plant here. Getting that other note with the middle and pulgar. Okay. All that's just pretty simple, the chords, until you get this scale. Now we gotta go from pluck, tirando, pluck, open, or free, anyway, to get to that picado, okay? So whenever I counter these problems, I just kind of isolate and work on that one thing. Until it comes pretty smoothly, okay? And then coming up is another fast run. So we come down this. Okay, so this thing. Again, it's just A major arpeggio, La mayor. Y ahora cambiar arpeggio a picado. This is the tricky thing, going from arpeggio to scale, restro. So what I found the trick for this is when you do this arpeggio, I'm not really done yet with the arpeggio here on this note. I play this one tirando as if it was still arpeggio, but notice I'm shifting here. Okay, and you work on this in compás. Again, I'm doing 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 6, 8, 10. Okay, now most people want to do the picado like this. Just fine. That's how Paco is doing it. But again, for me, cambiar a mi manera is put this note aquí. Put the E note on the 5th fret instead. And I'll show you why. I shift here, but then I do this. For me, this is very comfortable for jumping into picado quickly. See what happens there? That's where the trick is. Because once I'm here, and then I can do it. And then this note aquí, instead of that, I put it here. And again, the reason is for this reason. 3, 3, 3, 3 y 3. Para los dedos, 3 notas para afuera es mucho más fácil. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Whenever I have a student with a problem with the scale, I just say, look, how many notes on that string? ¿Cuántas notas para cuerda? 3, 3, 3. It's más fácil que 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, whatever. You know, changing the number of notes on each string is what hangs us up a lot of times. So for me, what I found is this tirando here, and then picado empezar here. And you just kind of work through that until you get it smooth. Start slower. Okay? And then the rest is okay. The next arpeggio picado thing was tricky. This one. Again, we got to switch from arpeggio to picado. So I focus on that F sharp note pretty much. Until you get that smooth. And then once you're in that position for picado, it's pretty straightforward. Okay? Same thing here. This one is tirando, but then I have here. So this is what I'm doing. Okay, so I have a tirando with the ring finger, the last note of the arpeggio, and I quickly jump for that note there. Yeah, so it's this one I use. Again, you might switch to this finger, however you feel comfortable. But for me, that's the way I'm feeling it better. Now in the video I saw, Paco was actually doing this, I think. Okay, which is actually like a tremolo. But actually I'm going to apply that to the next falseta. So look, for now just keep the, I think if that's, there's no reason really to have to do it tirando. The other one works a lot better with tirando. I'll show you in a second. But this falseta, if you want to, con tremolo. Con tremolo. Es, un poquito más difícil que picado. Más fácil con apoyando. And this one, also tricky. This one's the one to get used to. And then here is where a lot of people feel kind of hung up. So what I do here is I start the picado here. Okay, it's a very weird passage. And then this one is another tricky spot, because you're basically completing this arpeggio. But timing wise it's tricky. So what I'll do is this. So I'm working on this, AMI. Anular, medio, índice, and then pulgar. I look at those together as one unit. Okay? So you can actually skip this one for now, just to get the time. Like that. So, and then go back and put this middle finger here note as kind of a pickup. Okay. All right. So next up is the really famous one. This is the falseta he did when he was a kid on the album he did with Ricardo Modrego as a duet. And this is the really tricky arpeggio falseta, this one. Gives people a lot of problems. Again, we have the changing from arpeggio to picado, but more importantly is the timing. He's just so precise with the rhythm. And even especially the version with the dancer, where you hear the zapateado. In order to achieve that, you got to look at it in a very rhythmical way from the get-go. Because if you just look at it as like, oh, here's my arpeggio, and then my scale, it's never going to be flowing. It's not going to be fluid. So, first trick I learned was this. There's my tremolo thing. I'm doing tremolo. The right hand. And the reason for that is because it feels like it's still arpeggio going on. Okay? So that's one device to get you. So this little trick, AMI, really helps. Now in the video I always thought that's what he was doing, but I saw a video where he was actually just doing two fingers, the same idea of doing this. So again, it's tirando, but without the ring finger. So you can try it either way. Again, I like to give options. For me, that one really is comfortable, because tremolo, if you do a lot of this, you get used to what that feels like, and so it's very comfortable to do because you're just so used to that with tremolo. Okay. So once you get that down, and keep the tempo. Again, I like to 6, 8, 10, 6, 8, 10. Then it's just up and down arpeggio, pretty much. Now here we have the same issue like when we had this one. Same thing. We use the middle finger to keep that arpeggio feel. This note here. And then I'm going to switch to opallando here. Okay? Actually, I'm using middle finger, sorry. On this note, right? So you have to let this go when the middle finger does that. Let go of that bar. Or the ring finger moves out of the way. Middle finger. Tirando. Tirando, apoyando aquí. Esa nota. Okay, 9th fret. And then apoyando la escala. And a lot of people tend to rush the picado here, and then they don't have a fluid sound. So you got to really keep the picado even. That's challenging. So you got to feel the beat there where the notes change. Okay, and then we have a similar idea here with the A7. Again, I'm using my tremolo. Here again, my middle finger. Starting here, I do tremolo. And again, Paco does just the same idea. Just 2 fingers. But again, you still have to end with the ring finger. For me, that's why the tremolo idea works better, because we're going digga 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 digga. It's just really comfortable to do that. Okay, and you work on that. Once you get here, you see the same that we did up here, right? Same arpeggio, but on re, on D. This is D ace. Okay, right. Here we do across 2 strings. Right? So you make sure this bar is down good to get that, and your pinky is well on top. Again, you see my elbow getting in here to do this, okay? Pull the guitar up helps too, so. Because then we got to switch out to this note here. Again, that's a tricky move. And then this is the finger doing it, okay? So, ring finger, anular. So, again, I try to keep the 6, 8, 10, 6, 8, 10 compás. Just get from one chord to the other like that. Okay, working on each phrase and keep it really smooth. Once you get here, we have almost another situation here, like with the switching to picado, okay? This one is the diminished chord. Again, I do this one, the last note here, tirando. Okay, and then here, not too bad, but I have to get this guy here. I feel the elbow coming down here for that part. Okay, again. So all this stuff to keep it smooth, keep it rhythmical. Siempre en compás de tres. If you miss a note, it's okay, but keep the tiempo, keep the compás. Okay, now the other issue is Paco uses this, and I don't show it in the other parts of Guajiras, and it's not comfortable to use this capo here because up here we run out of a lot of space. The rest of the piece actually is un poquito más fácil con cejilla down here, okay? Pero arriba, difícil. So the reason for the capo, I think, is because for him it makes the whole song easier, except for this part, and then he just works harder on this part. If you have one of these guys, corta o larga, it's gonna make a difference with this song. Okay, so when we do this, right here already, you gotta get in tighter. But then this one, this is the problem. So once, you have to be very on top. That you can put this guy even further than it needs to go in hopes to get all those notes. Okay, to come ringing clear. Doing a bar in 11. My thumb way back here for that thing. Again, you gotta be very on top. The thumb's way down here to get that thing to happen. Okay, and again, if you have a shorter scale, this is even harder. So if you have a little bit longer scale, un poquito más fácil, a little bit easier if the frets are a little bit wider up here. But you can see what happened. Okay, so it's really this part. Is the whole challenge about using the cejilla. So if you want to use the cejilla on this piece, the whole piece, I would start with this falseta and really start getting comfortable with those bars up there because they're really tricky. Especially if you're like me and you have a chiquito, very chiquito corta. So it's really this chord here. This one's the tricky. You want to make it real clean and pretty. It's very challenging, okay? Alright, so the other parts of the falseta, I'm going to take this off again just so we keep everything in our head. The next scale, it's kind of tricky. Let's see. We have, oh, okay, this one that goes. Okay, so starting here, we have to get into position for picado. That's the first thing that's tricky, it's just doing it. Okay, just make sure you can get here to do your fast run, okay? this is another phrase where you can choose which string to play the note on. If you just play open, right, that's fine. Again, para mí, tres cuerdas, tres notas para cuerda, tres, tres, tres. Okay. So I do the change here. So I put this note here. That's what works for me the easiest. But anyway, once you get here, you gotta slap this bar down. Okay. Here's another spot. La misma cosa. It seems really easy. Just write up the scale. Sol, la, si, do, re, mi, fa. Right? It seems easy, but I was always getting a hang up here on this. And the reason is because which finger you want to start with. If you start with medio, you have an awkward thing here. If you start with índice, it's a different place. So what fixed this for me, again, I put this note aquí. So I do this. And I suddenly never mess it up. No matter how fast I'm going. Fast, you don't want to have to think about which finger, what's going on. So I'll just do. Okay. Okay. So for me, that's the trick. Now you can try it yourself, but the reason I think for me that it's the trick is because this. I can do that really fast, but this a little bit more can cause problems for me. Anyway, that's me, how I'm doing it. And then the last big run, I think, is let's see, what is that one? Let's see, okay, so this part. Okay, we end up here, and we have this one. Okay, another fast picado. It's got an awkward thing here. It's not a typical kind of run. So what I'm doing is this, right? And then again, pull off. Sorry, it's here. Okay, again. Now here, you see again, even Paco does this one with this note here instead of here. And probably for the same reason, he feels a lot more comfortable shifting this note to this one. So this is one of the few where I'm kind of doing it like Paco's doing it. There's really not a lot of variation for that one, okay? Yeah, it took me a while to get used to it. It's a very weird thing to do. Once you get used to this, it goes pretty smooth after that. Alright, and then, is that it? Oh, we did the big long scale. Right, but this time we come down. So what I'm doing here again, because I like those 3 notes per string, doing a shift up, and then go to the second position here. Again, I like my tres notas para cuerda But in this case, I found this interesting thing happening. This is fine for me. This one, normally I would do, because I like 3 notes like this. I found when I was picking it that I'm actually playing under the bar. This note, watch. I noticed a difference in the sound, and I was just going. And so when I realized I was doing that, I just gave up on this note here. Just got rid of that, and I realized it's okay to just 2 notes on this one spot where I'm going. So you want to get the B here. Okay. Oh, and then your triplet. It's a great exercise for getting picado fast on one string. Triplet. Okay. Alright, and that's pretty much it for Guajira. So, it's a good 50-minute tutorial. I was going to do another piece, but I might save that for another tutorial, I guess. Called Guajiras de Lucia. This is another favorite of mine from the guitar trio. But since we spent a lot of time with this, I'll save that for another tutorial. So, hope you get something out of this for Guajiras de Lucia, and I'll put a link to the performance I did a couple years ago in the description. And we'll see you next time.